Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here, and it's time to review Guillermo Del Toro's Pinocchio, directed by Guillermo Del Toro and Mark Gustafsson. And this tells the story of Pinocchio, but not quite like you've heard it before. It's a little bit of a darker retelling. It pulls a lot from the original story of Pinocchio, and it's a much less Disney-fied version of the story. And it really works remarkably well, like as a Del Toro picture, like many of Del Toro's films. It's about an innocent character who wants to live authentically and purely in an authoritarian world that doesn't allow that. And as this movie went on, I discovered that it has just as much on its mind as you would expect from a Del Toro movie. Midway through the movie, I thought like, okay, I see the messages that you're going for. They're kind of obvious. They're kind of easy to see. But by the end, I thought it actually did go for something different. You have some cartoonish villains in this film, like Christoph Waltz playing the circus manager, and the boring-looking fascist guy. I do think that these villains are a little too obviously villainous, because when it comes to actually falling under the spell of a fascist leader, it's not always so easy as it is for us in the audience watching this film to tell who's good and who's evil and who's guiding us in the right direction and who's guiding us towards, the thunderclouds. And this movie very much is about Pinocchio trying to find guidance as this thing that just came into the world and is very innocent. And it was interesting how Geppetto wanted to be a guide for Pinocchio. We can tell that Geppetto is good in his soul, but it was interesting how he had some flaws in his approach to molding Pinocchio. And what I thought was really interesting was that the movie actually kind of has an answer to how do you know who to follow when everybody in the world is trying to give you guidance, and guidance isn't even necessarily a bad thing. Like, how do you know that you're going down the right path or the wrong path? And I won't spoil it, but this movie has a little bit of an answer to that isn't immediately obvious, and it doesn't spell that out for you. There were things that I was genuinely left like thinking about and pondering over when this movie ended. It even goes into like mortality, surprisingly, and that's a theme where I was like, I don't know how well this fits into like Pinocchio's thing, but the more I think about it, like, I think it does actually work. And one of my favorite things a movie can do is end up saying something that you weren't expecting it to by the end. The heart and soul of this film, though, is really the relationship with Pinocchio and Geppetto. The movie never loses sight of that as its core. Geppetto and Pinocchio are both flawed, well-written characters. And a lot of times when there's a child in the lead of a kid's movie, their innocence is so pure and wonderful and awesome that they can basically do no wrong. But it is Pinocchio's innocence that can make him ignorant and susceptible to going down the wrong path. So I was happy that Pinocchio was actually a well-written character here. And there's the interesting dynamic where Geppetto wants to get rid of the burden of his grief, and Pinocchio is carrying a different kind of burden of being somebody that the world doesn't want. And probably my favorite part of the animation in this film is how Geppetto's eyes are so emotive. I think it's really remarkable how they made a puppet, like you look into their sad, grieving eyes, and you feel it like you would with any great live action performance. And credit must also be given to David Bradley's vocal performance as Geppetto, which is also really heartbreaking. My least favorite part of the animation was the mouth of the kid who's the son of the fascist. It was just like a little bit unpleasant, but I did actually really like that character and the relationship that he starts developing with Pinocchio later on. I thought that was really important. Some people don't love Pinocchio's voice acting in this, and I get that he just sounds like any boy and he just has like a very smooth voice, but I don't think Pinocchio needed to sound like a cartoon character or anything like that. I think it works that he's a little bit of a blank slate. I was shocked that Cate Blanchett was the voice of the monkey. Like, this monkey is just like making monkey noises. It's not a talking monkey. It doesn't have Cate Blanchett's voice. Like, apparently she can just do monkey noises. I'm like really, really confused by it. I didn't know it was her. I don't know how she did that. I will say I didn't really know how much I was gonna like this movie like in the middle, because I didn't think that the writing was amazing. I think most of the characters, aside from some of the more one-dimensional side characters, are well written and the ideas are there, but I thought the dialogue was just all right. Sometimes a little bit on the nose. The humor was okay. There were a lot of jokes where like Jiminy Cricket just keeps getting like crushed, and it's like, cricket get hurt again. Keeps getting hurt. Hurt the cricket. There are a lot of scenes that do a fine job advancing the plot, but ultimately end up being a little bit forgettable. Maybe if I watched the movie again, I would disagree with that. But I wouldn't put this on the level of like a Shrek or a good Pixar movie in terms of the pure enjoyability of every scene, or like having, those kind of really clever jokes. And Pinocchio doesn't necessarily need to be that. I did think that the adventure picked up a lot in the third act, and I like how we go all over the place. We go to, the whale, of course, and the soldier training camp. The music in this movie is all right. The songs aren't meant to be like showstopper musical numbers that go on for like 5 minutes. It just kind of like becomes a song, a character will start singing, and it's fine, it's nice, but the songwriting feels a little bit basic, with the lyrics and the rhyming. And overall, the songs were kind of forgettable. Let's talk about the animation, and while we're on that subject, some of the categories this could play in at the Oscars, beyond the obvious animated feature, which we know it's winning. The animation's really beautiful. It's crisp and smooth, and it works just as well capturing the tender moments between the characters as it does like the bigger set pieces. And the production design is really detailed. I don't know if it's like the greatest achievement in stop motion I've ever seen. Like, I think some of the stuff by Leica might have impressed me a little bit more, but it's not a contest. It would be interesting if the Academy chose to nominate this for production design because it's an animated movie, but when you really think about it, it has production design in just the same way that anything else does. Just very tiny production design. The score from Alexander Desplat is great. I would say it did blend in with the movie for me, and because I was paying attention to other things, it was a little bit in the background to me, so I wasn't paying like full attention to it most of the time. I don't think it's going to be a score that wins, but I think it will get nominated. Visual effects, I would need to see like how much they actually did. I know that it's kind of a lot. I don't know if it's as much as like Kubo did, but some of the behind scenes stuff I've seen so far is pretty interesting. I think that nomination could happen. Did I feel like the movie was getting nominated for Best Picture? If I didn't see any other reactions, I probably would just say like, nah, not really. It'll definitely be really strong for animated feature, maybe get like visual effects and score. But picture didn't feel like a no-brainer to me. I know I just made predictions where I put this at number 10, but honestly, I don't know if I would have this in anymore. It could happen. It's gonna depend pretty much all on just how hard Netflix is campaigning it and prioritizing it. And it didn't really feel like a screenplay movie either. That could maybe happen if it's in picture, but it didn't have the same kind of thing going for it with the comedy as a lot of stuff like, Toy Story 3 or Shrek, movies that get nominated for screenplay. And the dialogue wasn't the best part of the movie. Overall, the movie really had its heart in the right place. It had well-developed central characters, and it was pretty gorgeous throughout. I would give Del Toro's Pinocchio an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. When's your Pinocchio movie coming out?